Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Moving on to the next lecture, and in this next lecture, we are going to talk about the drowning and immersion, the evidence of drowning and the science, similarly different types of drownings. And drowning has been defined as process of experiencing respiratory impairment due to submersion or immersion in a body of water or in a liquid. So that is the definition, and that is the usual pattern of our lectures. First we go through definitions, and then typical stuff, and then advanced levels, variations, and minor details of different topics. So moving on and seeing what we have got there. Drowning. What is drowning? It is the process of experiencing respiratory impairment from submersion or immersion in liquid. Now, speaking in context of literature and layman talking, the submersion and immersion are considered synonyms, and they are quite used interchangeably. And even if you use at this level, even if you make use of them interchangeably at this level, no one's gonna get hurt. The examiner won't feel offended. But there are slight differences, and I think we should go through it, and as it will make things a little bit more clear for coming slides. So what is submersion? Consider this. This is a body of water, a bathtub or a stream or anything you would like to think of. And if the dead body or the drowned body is fully submerged or is it present under the surface of water, the whole body is present under the surface of water, this is known as submersion. And if only certain part of the body is immersed or is inserted in the water, like for example an assailant or a thief trying to kill a person, and in any case of homicide, when an assailant tries to immerse the head of the victim inside a body of water, for example a bucket perhaps, so this is known as immersion. Immersion will be like this. This is known as immersion. Now, when investigating, it is important that all features of known history are taken into account. For example, ligatures to the hand or feet, similarly weights tied to the feet of the victim, and jumping or and it is also important to consider that jumping or diving into the water may result in limb, neck, or head injuries that render a person incapable of swimming or extracting themselves from the body of water, and this can also result in drowning. So there are different patterns, and if you find a body inside some liquid, or if you find a body in a river or canal or anything like that, it does not necessarily mean that the person has drowned. It can be like for example, a person can drown after a person can be thrown in a body of water after killing it through some other mechanism. So we need to have a little bit understanding as to differentiate true drowning from false drowning. So we are going to discuss different evidence and signs of drowning that helps us establish the proper cause of death, that we can write in the medical legal report or in death certificate that yes, I saw these findings, and I am quite sure that the person died due to drowning. So the first sign, going to the next slide, we will go through two first signs of drowning. The first one is washerwoman hand. I don't think I can explain it much more simpler than the words used to. Than the words this process is called. And the name gives the whole thing. Like if immersed for long enough, the skin of the hands and feet will become irregular, loose, and the fingertips will become opaque and wrinkled, as you can see in this picture. The fingertips and the hand is wrinkled, and it kind of resembles the hands of a washerwoman. So this finding is known as washerwoman hands. This is the first sign of drowning. Similarly, the second sign is degloving of skin. As immersion time increases, the loose skin begins to separate from underlying tissues, and this leads to skin and nail peeling off. The skin kind of degloves from the hands and feet, and this degloving of skin leads to dyspigmentation or loss of pigmentation, and this loss of pigmentation may cause color changes in the skin. And here's a beautiful depiction. I don't know if it will be cruel of me to call it beautiful, but here is a perfect illustration of degloving of skin. Now you might think that this thing here, this white thing here, is a sock. No, it's not a sock. It's actually the skin of the deceased that is peeling off, and this phenomena is known as degloving. And moving on to next slide, I have just written what I have already explained. Like left in water for long enough, the skin of the hands and feet will become wrinkled, and the fingertips will become opaque and wrinkled and loose. So this is known as washerwoman's hands, and it is sometimes also known as washerwoman fingers. So therefore, I also mentioned fingers in here. And as the immersion time increases, macerated skin begins to separate. What is macerated skin? It is a $5 term for loose skin. So loose skin begins to separate, and this leads to peeling off of the skin. And the term we use for peeling off of skin is known as degloving. And this degloving causes loss of pigment layers, and skin changes, color changes in the skin may occur. And if the color changes can occur, this can lead to problem identifying the body and assigning to which ethnic group the body actually belongs to. Moving on to next slide. Cadaveric rigidity. What is cadaveric rigidity? The name gives everything. Cadaver means death or dead body. Rigidity means stiffness. So it is the stiffness of the dead body, and it is quite remarkable, quite of significance in cases of drowning, as the drowned body is usually seen holding pieces of weeds and grass, as is depicted, as is quite visible in this illustration. So, and this is known as cadaveric rigidity. The next sign is frothy fluid coming from the mouth. The frothy fluid, why does this come from the body recovered from the body? Why does the froth kind of oozes out of the mouth after a body is recovered from water? It is because of the fact that the fluid gets aspirated. When the body drowns, it aspirates the fluid, and this fluid enters the airways. In the airways, this aspirated fluid mixes with the bronchial secretions and the surfactant of the lung. And this mixture of bronchial secretions, surfactant, and the water, this forms a frothy exudate, which kind of oozes out after the body is recovered from the water. And this is what I have explained in words in the next slide. So see, external form froth or frothy fluid in the airways reflects a mixture of bronchial secretions, mucus, proteinaceous material, and pulmonary surfactant with the aspirated fluid. This forms the froth. And what is cadaveric rigidity? It is a rare post-mortem finding that can be seen in bodies recovered from water, where vegetation is found tightly gripped in the hands. Now, we have already gone through 4 of the signs, and there are total 8 signs we have to study. 4 we have already gone through, 4 are still remaining. So moving on, seeing what we have got next. Emphysema, aquosum, or heavy lungs. What is emphysema, aquosum? Aquosum means water. Aqua, it means water. So it is emphysema, aquosum simply means heavy lungs. It means water-logged lungs, water-filled lungs. And how we, like in post-mortem, how can we say that this a certain pair of lungs is waterlogged or not? The perfect sign or the distinguishing feature from a waterlogged and non-waterlogged lung is to look at the medial border of the lungs. If the medial borders or the median margins meet in the midline, as is seen here, you see. So let me change the color of my pen. Maybe green would do the job. You see, the medial borders of the lungs are kind of merging into each other, kind of meeting. So this is known as emphysema, aquosum, or heavy lungs. Similarly, this fluid accumulation in the lungs can cause subpleural hemorrhages, which are quite visible in this picture. You see these dark green spots. Let me remove the ring so that you can see it quite visibly. So these hemorrhages are called Paltoff's spots or Paltoff's hemorrhages. And just what I have said in verbally, I have written that in the next slide. So let's go through that. Emphysema, aquosum, or heavy lungs describe hyper-expanded and waterlogged lungs. And what is the sign? What is the distinguishing feature from a waterlogged and non-waterlogged lungs? Is medial margin meet in the midline and do not collapse on removal from the body. And there is pleural fluid accumulation. What are subpleural hemorrhages? Subpleural hemorrhages are also known as Paltoff spots, and they probably reflect hemolysis within the intra-alveolar hemorrhages and have been described in up to 60% of the drownings. And the last 2 signs of the drownings, miscellaneous signs, include middle ear congestion, hemorrhage, water or fluid accumulation in the intracranial sinuses, engorgement of solid organs, These are kind of miscellaneous signs. And when there is engorgement of solid organs, i.e. the fluid kind of accumulates in the solid organs, and almost all the bodies of water, almost all the canals, rivers, streams, even the sea water or the salt water contains microscopic organisms called diatoms. I hope you have all studied these in our FSC Protozoa section, I think the botany book of first year FSC. Diatoms. Diatoms are the presence of diatoms in the organs of the body. They can be seen with microscopy. So if the diatoms are seen in different organs of the body, that is the most perfect test, most perfect microscopic test for confirmation of drowning. So I have mentioned that in the one of the coming slides of the next lecture, but it kind of made sense to talk about it right here. The last sign is the microscopy of the lungs, and this microscopic studies will reveal alveolar distension, hemorrhage, and rupture. So that's all about the signs and evidence of the drowning. Now these signs are kind of general signs, typical signs of drowning, but they may be present or absent, and the presence or absence of these signs depends upon the many factors. Like for example, categoric rigidity may be found in one individual and may not be found in another individual. Categoric rigidity is associated with high emotional activity of the individual. If the person was emotional or angry or anything like that, he is supposed, or he is prone, or he will be seen holding parts of weeds or grasses in his hands, etc. Similarly, the lung findings, the Paltoff's hemorrhages, the emphysema aquosum, the frothy exudate coming from the mouth, these findings may be present in certain types of drownings and may not be present in other type of drownings. So there are different types of drownings. I think I am confusing you a little bit, but the point I was trying to make is that there are different types of drownings, and the types of drownings are associated with different signs and evidences. So that is the classification of drowning. Drowning can be primary, typical, or wet drowning, and it can be atypical drowning. After going through the different types of drowning, it will be just a piece of cake for you to guess what evidence will be found in what drowning, and what evidence or what sign of drowning will not be found in which type of drowning. So you need not to confuse yourself a little bit. I think I confused you at the end, but trust me, watch the next lecture and everything will become a piece of cake for you.